Let's talk about theme, book title, and cover, and check out this cover for my first novel. Hello again. This is author Nathaniel Sewell, and this is my last video about my novels as far as describing the theme, the book title, and again, the book cover. I'm going to talk about a book I wrote many years ago, decades, in fact, better than 20 years. It's the novel that I taught myself how to write novels. I didn't publish it for over a decade. We're talking about the theme, book cover, book title. The theme of this particular novel was, if you could steal anybody's DNA, who would you steal it from? What would you do with it? So I started writing this in 2004. It was influenced to me by my now ex-wife. She said, you really ought to take this novel writing and stuff a little more serious. You're actually fairly good at it. I'm like, okay, I don't know. And so this is the novel that I just kind of let my wildest imagination go, and I did. So it's out there. It's got all sorts of interesting characters, and again, it's all based on DNA and bioengineering and all this kind of wild stuff that back then it really wasn't as known as it is today. Now with what CRISPR technology and some of those gene editing technologies out there, you can literally alter babies and all this kind of stuff. So I made it into a satire because, again, I like to write satire. And that's the basic premise and theme behind the book. There's always a bit of a good versus evil in there, and that's Professor Kwan and Captain Lovins over here. And then there's my ex-wife's favorite character, which is Miss Prosperina, which Prosperina comes from Greek and Roman mythologies. It's a goddess of farming and agriculture and springtime, that sort of thing. And so her whole thing was she was going to take over the world without firing a shot. So if you think about it, how would you do that? I think you would do it by altering the water you drink, the air you breathe, and the food you eat. If you did that, you could probably do some damage if you really wanted to. And I guess we've kind of found that out here recently. But the book cover, Fishing for Light, really, if you get down to it, is what's in our cells. And if you want to take it from a more religious standpoint, really, you could say the spirit world, that God's actually in our cells. So if you're fishing for light, what is light? And if, again, you're a religious person, you'd say, well, that's God. So the book title really comes from seeking God, fishing for light. The follow-up to the book that if I ever decide to write, it's going to be called Cast into Darkness. So then, just the opposite would happen. Of course, that would mean I actually have to sit down and write the darn thing, and that takes time. But at any rate, the book cover kind of comes from DNA strips. You got a little baby there, and if you look around it, those are kind of what used to be kind of indicators of genes, or DNA rather, excuse me. And that's how they kind of filed it and figured it out, They do it a little different these days, but back then, that's what it was. And poor little baby represents innocence again, and all the world's going on around him. And it's a fun book. And again, it was my first. It's where I taught myself how to write novels. You got to start somewhere. If you're going to write short stories, great. If you're going to write poems, that's great too. I do both. I'll share those in future videos. But make it fun. If you want to, make it wacky. I like wacky. I've written some of these kind of novels. I've also written some really serious ones like Bobby Socks, which is an extremely serious book that I talked about before. That's the reason I have a pen name. But I thought I would keep along with this series. So, I think I'm going to take on our book cover, or a book back of the book description of a novel. That's a kind of an interesting thing to review. There's a process to it that gives the reader who's considering buying the book kind of a thumbnail sketch of what's the story about. At the very least, I think it should be fun. I'll tell you that. Again, if you're a creative person, you've watched this, I want to inspire you. Write your novel. write your short story. Be creative. I think it's fun. I encourage it. But and in the end of the day, if that's all I do is encourage someone else to pick up the pen, as it were, then great. Because you never know, that could be one of the best novels anyone's ever written, and you got started because you heard me and my pasty white face rattle on about one of his novels. Again, just write. Go for it. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.